Get down! Get down! You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
I'm just helping out since the nurses are short-staffed. Victoria Ashford's fingers moved across the IV pump touchscreen with practiced confidence. Adjusting numbers I couldn't see from where I sat. I looked up from my phone, my heart already accelerating before my brain caught up. She was standing beside Ethan's bed in a volunteer vest that looked too new, too clean. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped the screen, tap, 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 each touch deliberate and precise. "What are you doing in here?" My voice came out harder than I intended, loud enough that Sophia's head snapped up from across the pre-op room. Victoria turned, that practiced smile spreading across her face like ice cracking. "Michael, I told you. The hospital is terribly understaffed today. That awful flu outbreak has them running skeleton crews. I'm volunteering my time to help families in medical crisis." She paused, letting the words sink in. Being a good neighbor. That's when I saw it. The restraining order taped to the door frame, her photo, the words "Emergency Protective Order" in bold letters. Distance requirement, 500 feet. She wasn't supposed to be within 5 football fields of us. She definitely wasn't supposed to be touching my son's medical equipment. Get away from him. I stood so fast, my chair scraped against the floor. Get away from my son right now. The monitor behind Ethan's bed started beeping, a wrong kind of beep, irregular and urgent. The nurse at the station outside looked up sharply. Victoria stepped back, hands raised in mock innocence. "I was only trying to help, Michael, but I can see you're still as paranoid as ever." She walked toward the door, paused, looked back. "You always did overreact to women who cared about you." Then she was gone. I rejected her 12 years ago when we worked together. One sentence. "I'm happily married, Victoria. This won't be more than professional." I thought it ended there. I was catastrophically wrong. The alarm continued. Beep, beep, beep. But let me start 3 days earlier, at 3:47 a.m., when our house started screaming. Most people wake to sunrise or coffee. I woke to a high-pitched shriek that sounded like a smoke detector dying, followed by Sophia shaking my shoulder hard. "Michael?" Power's out. I bolted upright, adrenaline flooding before consciousness. The alarm wasn't for us. It was for Ethan. The sound came from the nutrient pump beside his bed equipment that had to run continuously 24/7, keeping his system balanced before Friday's surgery. Without it, his condition could destabilize in hours. Aurora had rolling brownouts all winter. The hospital issued us a medical-grade UPS battery and small generator. The pump couldn't stop. Not for a minute. Sophia was already moving, a blur in the dark. She's a data scientist. She sees patterns instantly and acts while I'm still processing. I'm a software architect. I think in systems and logic trees. In crises, she moves while I boot up. What happened? I swung my legs over, knees popping loud enough to echo. "Main power's dead." She called from Ethan's room. Battery kicked in. Checked the breakers. Our son slept through it. Ethan was 15 and could sleep through earthquakes. The surgery Friday was major, correcting a congenital digestive issue he'd had since birth. The doctors wanted him stable, properly nourished. That's why the pump ran all night, delivering precisely calibrated nutrients. I stumbled to the garage, checked the circuit breaker box. Every switch was on. That was wrong. I looked out the window. Every house on our street had lights. The Johnsons' porch glowed. The Kowalskis' security lights illuminated their driveway. Just us in the dark. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight and went outside into January cold. Aurora winters are brutal, dry air and wind that cuts through whatever you're wearing. I was in pajama pants and a t-shirt. The cold hit like a slap. I followed the main power line from our meter to the junction box near Ethan's window. The cord wasn't unplugged. It was cut. Sliced clean through like someone used bolt cutters. The copper wires inside caught my flashlight beam, bright and wrong. I stood there, beam trembling slightly in the cold. Not an accident. Not a squirrel or random vandalism. Someone had deliberately walked onto our property and cut the power, feeding my son's life-sustaining equipment. My mind raced through options. Call 911 right now. Wake Ethan with sirens and police questions and flashing lights. Make him understand that someone tried to hurt him while he slept. Or handle this quietly. Let him sleep peacefully through his last nights before surgery. Deal with it at dawn when he's rested and strong. I chose quiet. I chose to let him sleep. I told myself I was protecting him from fear. It was the first in a series of wrong choices that would nearly cost him his life. "Sophia," I called, voice lower than intended. "You need to see this." She came out, cardigan over pajamas, breath forming clouds. When she saw the severed cord, her face went completely blank. That's how I know she's truly angry. Not yelling or crying, just that dead calm that's more terrifying than any explosion. She knelt, examined the cut with her scientist's eye for detail and evidence. This was deliberate. Someone used heavy-duty cutting tools. Recently. She pointed at the exposed copper, bright and clean. No oxidation yet. This happened within the last hour. Who would? Victoria. We said together, the name spoken in unison, like we'd both been thinking it but afraid to voice it alone. I should have called the police then. Should have reported it immediately, created an official record, started the paper trail that would matter later. But I didn't. I told myself we needed to be sure first, needed evidence, needed to build a case strong enough that she couldn't talk her way out of it or claim it was coincidence or random vandalism. Wrong choice number 2. Every hour I delayed gave her more time, more confidence, more opportunity to escalate. As sunrise painted the sky gray, I was outside performing emergency electrical surgery with tape and wire nuts, creating a repair that would make any actual electrician weep. Just as I finished, something white appeared on our door. An envelope. Crisp. Official. The Pinewood Heights HOA logo. A disappointed-looking pine tree. Violation notice property. 2847. Windridge Drive violation. Unapproved exterior electrical modifications. Per Section 7, Article 4, all external conduits must be color-matched and pre-approved. Fine. $150. Remedy. Remove unauthorized wiring within 48 hours. Signature. Victoria Ashford, President. Time stamped 5:23 a.m. I'd finished my repair at 5:15. She'd been watching, waiting in the dark. The moment she saw me fix what she'd destroyed, she wrote the violation. Sophia read it over coffee. A small, humorless smile touched her lips. She cuts our power. We fix it to save our son. She fines us for the repair. That's calculated sociopathy. It's a message, I said. She wants us to know she can hurt us, and we can't stop her. We stood on our porch as Pinewood Heights woke, garage doors opening, cars starting, but nothing felt normal. We had a critically ill child, surgery in 3 days, and an enemy who could access our property and wield the HOA rulebook like a weapon. This isn't about wiring, Sophia said. This is about you and her, about 12 years ago. I'd been dreading this conversation. I know. She's escalating. Passive-aggressive notes were one thing. This is attempted harm. We can't ignore this anymore. She was right. This started 12 years ago when I worked for Jefferson County Planning and Victoria Morrison, not Ashford, then recently divorced from husband number 2, according to office gossip, was interested in being more than colleagues. I was married. I loved Sophia. I had a young son. Zero interest in complications. When Victoria suggested we work late together or grab drinks after meetings, I declined politely. Every time. Professional, boring, friendly, but distant. I thought I was handling it with appropriate boundaries and respect for both our professional positions. What I didn't know then, what I wouldn't learn until the police showed me her therapy records during the investigation, was that Victoria had a history. A pattern. 3 previous workplace relationships, each ending when the man chose someone else or tried to establish boundaries. 2 restraining orders from previous romantic interests who'd rejected her advances. A psychiatrist's note in her file mentioning obsessive attachment disorder and pathological need for validation through romantic conquest. I wasn't the first man to say no to Victoria. I was just the first one stupid enough to later move into a neighborhood where she held power. The last time she asked, suggesting we attend a Denver conference together, separate rooms of course, just colleagues networking, I'd been more direct than previous deflections. Victoria, I need to be completely clear. I'm happily married. I love my wife. This will never be more than a professional relationship. I'm not interested in anything else. That's when the mask slipped. Just for a second, her friendly colleague expression cracked, and I saw something underneath that made every instinct scream danger. Her eyes went flat and cold, her smile stretched too tight, and for just a heartbeat I saw pure, concentrated rage before she tucked it away again behind professional composure. "Of course, Michael," she'd said, voice suddenly ice cold. "I understand completely. I misread the signals. Won't happen again." But something in her tone, in the way she emphasized "won't happen again," felt less like acceptance and more like a promise or a threat. 2 months later, I took a private sector job. Better pay, closer to home. I never saw Victoria Morrison again until we moved to Pinewood Heights 10 years later. At the annual HOA barbecue our first week, there she was, clipboard, visor, introducing herself as Victoria Ashford, board president. When she saw me, her smile could have frozen beer. "Michael Chen," she'd said. "What a remarkably small world." From that day, it began. Violations for trash cans visible 9 minutes past deadline. Warnings about quarter-sized oil stains. Complaints about Ethan's basketball hoop being non-regulation black. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, each signed with that sharp, angry signature. Now, with surgery 3 days away, she'd escalated to something darker. That afternoon, we expected a visit from the private ambulance service. Ethan's surgeon wanted a practice transport run. With his condition, we weren't taking chances. The ambulance pulled up to Pinewood Heights' main gate right on schedule. The gate stayed shut. My phone buzzed. The driver. "Sir, the gate code isn't working." Impossible. The code hadn't changed in 5 years. "Try again." 2847 star. "That's what I'm entering." Access denied. Sophia was already on her laptop, fingers flying. "Michael?" She changed the guest codes. All of them. This morning at 6:15 a.m. No notification. She just did it. Hot, helpless, anger surged. But I made another wrong choice. I didn't call the police then either. I told myself, document everything, build a case. Don't make Ethan afraid. I ran to the gate, used my remote to open it manually. "Sorry," I gasped to the confused paramedics. "Our HOA president is on a power trip. The practice run went fine. The paramedics were professional and kind. But as they drove away, ice-cold dread crept up my spine. The power cord could have been random, but changing gate codes the exact morning we had scheduled medical transport, that was targeted. Planned. She was testing how far she could isolate us, how much control she could exert. First, she cuts power inside our home. Then, she cuts access from outside. Each action tighter, more suffocating. I should have called the police after the gate codes. I should have acted instead of documenting. Another wrong choice. The next morning, we were at Arapahoe County Courthouse in Littleton. Courthouses smell like old paper, burnt coffee, and desperation. We were there for an Emergency Protective Order EPO, the kind you get when you need the law to step in immediately. Sophia had been up past midnight building our case. She's a data scientist, she thinks in data sets and patterns. While I'd been pacing and fuming, she'd organized our nightmare into chronological presentation. "I have everything," she said, tapping her folder. "Police report from the power cord. Time-stamped violation notice 5 minutes after your repair. Sworn statement from the ambulance company about gate codes. Log of every violation. we've received in 2 years. Photos, dates, documentation. You think a judge will listen? I looked around the crowded waiting room. Everyone had a crisis. Most seemed more dramatic than an HOA dispute. This isn't about mailbox colors, Sophia said firmly. This is systematic harassment escalating to sabotage of medical equipment for a critically ill child. We stick to facts. No emotion. Right, no emotion about someone trying to kill our son. An hour later, we stood before Judge Patricia Hammond. She looked tired, skeptical. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, you're petitioning for emergency order against Victoria Ashford, who is your HOA president. Sophia stepped forward. She laid out facts with scientific precision. The severed cord, the immediate violation notice, the changed gate codes, the timing relative to Ethan's surgery. Judge Hammond listened, expression unreadable. She examined photos, read the ambulance statement, reviewed the timeline. This woman is your homeowners association president, she repeated. You believe she's doing this because? Awkward moment. How do you explain a 12-year grudge without sounding petty? I took a breath. Your Honor, 12 years ago, Miss Ashford and I worked together. She expressed personal interest I didn't return as I was and am married. Her current actions appear motivated by that rejection. It sounded absurd, like bad TV. But Judge Hammond didn't laugh. She looked at the evidence, the timeline, the proximity to surgery. Her expression shifted from skeptical to serious. The evidence shows clear, targeted harassment escalating to actions directly endangering a minor's health, she said, voice suddenly hard. The timing relative to your son's surgery is deeply concerning. She picked up her stamp. The thud echoed. Petition granted. Miss Ashford is to have no contact with you or your son. She must remain at least 500 feet from your persons, residence, and vehicle, effective immediately. The sheriff will serve this afternoon. Walking out into bright January sunlight, I felt relief so powerful my legs almost buckled. We had protection. A legal shield. You were incredible, I said, taking Sophia's hand. I just presented data, she said, squeezing back. Now we need proof she cut that cord. We need her on camera. The problem, our security was basic. A Ring doorbell great for seeing Amazon deliveries, terrible for capturing saboteurs. The footage from that night showed bushes rustling around 2:43 a.m., no clear person, no face, no plate, just movement. Then minutes later, the alarm. Not enough. It proved something happened, not who. We sat at our kitchen table, staring at grainy video, watching victory slip away. That's when I thought of Raymond Cole. Raymond lived 6 houses down. Retired FBI agent, a fact he'd mention within 30 seconds of any conversation. Good guy, but an oversharer. He spent his days on his porch, watching everything with trained eyes, and he had cameras. Lots of them. His house looked like a surveillance hub. I'm going to talk to Raymond, I told Sophia. I found him on his porch, despite the January cold, drinking coffee from an FBI Fidelity, Bravery, Integrity mug. Michael, he boomed. This dry air reminds me of a Nevada stakeout. Raymond, I need help. I interrupted gently. Someone cut our power line Tuesday night, deliberately, around 2:43 a.m. Raymond's friendly demeanor vanished. The retired agent surfaced. What time exactly? 2:43 a.m. Victoria Ashford, he said flatly. I was startled. How? I was with the Bureau 30 years. I know patterns. I've seen how she looks at your house during morning walks. Everyone in Pinewood Heights knows the history. She runs this HOA like a fiefdom. He stood. Come on. Let's check footage. His office was a shrine to FBI career plaques, commendations, a bank of monitors showing feeds from 12 cameras. Like a command center. Tuesday 0243 hours, Raymond muttered, pulling up footage with practiced efficiency. We watched the silent street. A car, a raccoon. Then at 2:41 a.m. a dark sedan appeared, headlights off, rolling slowly. It stopped in shadow between streetlights, outside my doorbell camera's range. A figure got out. Female, average height, dark hoodie. She moved quickly toward my house, disappeared between buildings. 3 minutes later, reappeared. Got back in the car, drove away, slowly. Still no headlights. "There's your perpetrator," Raymond said. "It's not enough," I said, frustrated. "You can't see her face." "Could be anyone." "Hold on," Raymond rewound, froze the frame as the car pulled away. He zoomed in. For a moment, brake lights illuminated the rear, and on the bumper, a sticker. Oval-shaped. Raymond enhanced with sophisticated software. The sticker focused WHC, Windridge Heights Community. "That's the private recycling program Victoria's so proud of," Raymond said. "Required for HOA board members." "And look, dark blue Lexus ES. Probably 2022 or 2023. See that chrome detail on the trunk?" My heart pounded. How many dark blue Lexuses with Windridge Heights stickers in Pinewood? Raymond grinned slowly. That satisfaction of an investigator who just found the thread that would unravel everything. 1. Victoria Ashford parks it in her driveway every single day. I've logged it in my neighborhood watch notes for 2 years. But as I walked home clutching that drive, Raymond called after me. "Michael, wait, there's something else you should see. Something that bothers me." I turned back. He pulled up another camera angle, this one from 3 nights before the power cord incident. "Look at this." 1:47 a.m. Thursday night. The footage showed a different figure male, heavy-set, walking down our street. He paused near our house, seemed to be looking at something, then moved on. "Who's that?" I asked. "Tom Burkhart, lives 2 streets over. He's had violations from Victoria, too. She tried to fine him for parking his work truck in his driveway. He's been pretty vocal about hating her." Raymond zoomed in. "He was out here the night before your power got cut. Could be coincidence. Could be he was casing your place, thinking about payback against Victoria by framing her." My stomach dropped. "You think he might have cut the cord?" "I think we need to eliminate all possibilities before we hand this to the cops," Raymond said. "Because if we accuse Victoria and we're wrong, that restraining order won't mean squat, and you'll have exposed your strategy." We spent the next 3 hours going through Raymond's footage systematically. Thursday night, Tom Burkhart walking past. Friday night, nothing. Saturday night, a delivery driver who got lost. Sunday night, nothing. Then Tuesday at 2:41 a.m., Victoria's Lexus. "But here's the thing," Raymond said, pulling up another angle. "Tom Burkhart's truck is still in his driveway at 2:41. See, right there. So, unless he walked half a mile in the middle of the night after leaving his truck at home, he's not your guy." He switched to another camera. And here's the Kowalski's security camera footage they gave me access for Neighborhood Watch. It shows their side yard at 2:38 a.m., 4 minutes before the power cut. Look. The footage showed Victoria's Lexus driving past the Kowalski's house, heading toward our street. "That's her," I breathed. "That's her," Raymond confirmed. "But I wanted to make sure we had it airtight before you went to the cops, because Victoria's smart. She'll have an explanation. She'll say she was just driving around, couldn't sleep, had nothing to do with your power cord, so we needed to eliminate every other possibility first." He pulled up a map on his computer. "I've also checked the HOA administrative logs I have access through Neighborhood Watch Committee." Victoria logged into the security gate system from her home computer at 6:13 a.m. the morning your ambulance was supposed to arrive. 2 minutes later, all the guest access codes were changed. Then, at 6:47 a.m., she drove past your house. He showed me the time-stamped administrative logs, the GPS data he'd requested from the HOA management company. She's not just harassing you, Michael. She's documenting her own crimes. Every action she takes leaves a digital footprint because she's so convinced of her own authority that she doesn't think she needs to hide. I stared at the evidence accumulating on Raymond's screen's camera footage. From multiple angles, GPS tracking, administrative logs, timestamps that lined up perfectly. It was overwhelming. Why is she documenting everything? I asked. Because in her mind, she's not committing crimes, Raymond said quietly. She thinks she's enforcing justice. She thinks you wronged her 12 years ago, and she's finally in a position to make you pay. She's keeping records because she believes she's right. But what Raymond's cameras couldn't show us, what we wouldn't discover until after the arrest, when police pieced together hospital records and security footage, was the full architecture of Victoria's hospital plan. 6 months earlier, in July, Victoria had attended volunteer orientation at Aurora Medical Center. Real name, honest application, clean background check. She had no criminal record then. 3 training sessions. She learned hospital layout, memorized badge systems, studied shift changes. She'd been planning this for half a year before Ethan's surgery was even scheduled, but she never actually volunteered. Completed orientation, got badge photo taken, then ghosted. Never showed for her first shift. The volunteer coordinator sent follow-up emails. Victoria ignored them. Hospital eventually marked her inactive and deactivated her system badge. Except Victoria had made a copy before deactivation. Laminated it at a print shop, kept it in a drawer, waiting. Surgery morning, she arrived at Aurora Medical at 5:47 a.m., more than 2 hours early. Security footage showed her entering main entrance in regular clothes, large purse. She went to the volunteer office, empty that early. Waited in the hallway until sweet Margaret arrived for her 6 a.m. shift. Margaret had volunteered 15 years, knew everyone, trusted everyone. "Excuse me," Victoria said, per Margaret's later police statement. "I'm new to the volunteer program. They told me to meet my supervisor here." Margaret, kind and trusting, let Victoria into the volunteer break room. That's when Victoria struck, pushed Margaret into a supply closet, took her vest and active badge, locked the door. Margaret's phone was in her locker. She couldn't call for help. She pounded on the door, but at 6 a.m. in a back hallway, nobody heard. Victoria put on Margaret's vest over her red cardigan, deliberately bright to stand out as obviously a volunteer. Clipped Margaret's active badge to the vest. Grabbed a clipboard from her purse. Woman with clipboard looks official. Hospital footage showed her moving through corridors with purpose. Walked past 3 nurses' stations. Nobody questioned her. She belonged. Reached pediatric surgical at 6:34 a.m. Spent an hour watching, observing, learning patterns. Identified Ethan's room 347 by checking the digital board when nobody looked. At 7:42 a.m., opportunity. The nurse who'd programmed Ethan's IV pump left for supplies. Next check, scheduled for 12 minutes. Victoria walked in, went to the pump. She'd studied Alaris operating videos on YouTube for weeks, changed 3 settings: dose concentration, infusion rate, decimal point placement, 90 seconds. She knew exactly what she was doing, which buttons, how to make it look like simple dosage while creating lethal overdose. She walked out. Back down hallway, past nurse's station, disappeared into different wing. Footage showed her removing vest and badge in restroom, stuffing in purse, walking through hospital like a visitor. That's when we arrived with Ethan. That's when Victoria, seeing us in the hallway, couldn't resist. Put the vest back on, clipped the badge, walked into the room to gloat. She wanted to be there when her 6-month plan succeeded. Except I saw her. Except Dr. Patel caught the error. Except everything fell apart because Victoria couldn't resist being present for her victory. The morning of Ethan's surgery arrived wrapped in tense, fragile calm. We'd done everything we could. Given Aurora Medical Center security, a copy of the EPO and Victoria's photo. Alerted the pediatric floor nurses. Ethan was brave, more worried about hospital Wi-Fi than surgery. His courage amazed me constantly. Sophia and I were disasters, barely holding together. But we smiled, joked, watched a dumb movie on the little TV, pretending. The pre-op area was quiet, efficiency nurses checking vitals, anesthesiologists explaining procedures, everything routine. Ethan connected to monitors tracking heart rate and oxygen. An IV pole stood ready. connected to the IV line, a programmable pump that would deliver medication at precise, computer-controlled rates. I'd researched these pumps obsessively the night before, couldn't sleep, kept looking up Alaris infusion pump interface and how to verify IV dosage settings. I'd found a Reddit thread from a nurse. Decimal point errors are the silent killer. Always double check. That thread kept playing in my mind. A nurse programmed the pump, double-checked against Ethan's chart, had another nurse verify. Standard protocol. Everything perfect. Dr. Sarah Patel arrived to review everything one final time. 50s, sharp-eyed, focused competence. Just as they were about to wheel Ethan to the OR, the pump made a soft sound. Beep, beep, beep. Nothing dramatic. Gentle, persistent notification. A nurse walked over, glanced at it. Oh, just a flow alert. Probably a tiny air bubble. Happens all the time. She pressed a button to silence it, but Dr. Patel had heard the beep. She walked over, brow furrowed. She didn't speak, just stared at the screen, then the IV bag, then back. She tapped through menus on the small display. The room went silent. Sophia and I exchanged a look that communicated everything. Something's wrong. Dr. Patel turned to the nurse, voice dangerously quiet. Who set these dosage parameters? The young nurse looked flustered. I did, Dr. Patel. I checked them against the chart. Check them again. Dr. Patel pointed at the screen. The decimal point is wrong. The concentration is off by a factor of 10. This pump is programmed to deliver 10 times the prescribed dose of pre-anesthetic agent. The world stopped rotating. 10 times? The nurse went white. But I checked. If this had started, Doctor, Patel said, voice like ice, my patient would have gone into cardiac arrest. 15-year-old child, healthy heart, dead from overdose before we reached the operating room. Collective gasp. Sophia grabbed my arm, nails digging in. I felt blood drain from my face. 10 times the dose. Not a typo. Decimal points don't move themselves. Deliberate murder. Dr. Patel moved fast. Lock this room. Nobody touches this equipment. It's evidence. To the head nurse. Call hospital security and police. Now. Attempted homicide. A charge nurse photographed the screen. Another sealed the device with evidence tape. The routine surgical prep was now a crime scene. Doctor? Patel looked at us, grim understanding in her eyes. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry. Your son is safe. We're postponing surgery until we understand what happened. But this was not an error. This was malicious. The world slowed. The sterile room filled with urgent, hushed voices. Someone on the phone to security. Ethan looked at us, confused and scared. Dad? What's going on? I knelt by his bed, took his hand, tried to keep my voice steady. Just a technical issue, buddy. Dr. Patel's being extra careful. But my mind raced. Who had been in this room? Nurses, doctors, techs, in and out in organized chaos. Who could have accessed the pump? Victoria. But that seemed impossible. She was under court order. She wouldn't be that brazen. Yes, she absolutely would. The power cord, the gate codes, those were practice. This was the endgame. The PA system crackled. Code Gray, pediatric surgical. Code Gray, pediatric surgical. Code Gray. Security threat. Combative person. Lockdown. Nurses rushed in, shut and locked our door. Security guard outside. The calm hospital world had shattered. The attack had already happened. Right here. And the person responsible might still be in the building. Police arrived quickly, 2 uniformed officers conferring with Dr. Patel. They examined the pump, yellow tape, like a murder scene. One officer took a statement from the young nurse. She was crying, explaining how she'd set dosage correctly, had verification per protocol. Someone changed it after she left. Sophia never sits idle in crisis. Security had rolled over a monitor, logged us into floor feeds. She took controls, started scrubbing. Last hour. she said, voice tight. Tampering happened between when the nurse programmed and when Dr. Patel found it. 20-minute window. She rewound hallway footage. Sped up parade of medical staff. Then she froze. There. A woman walked down the hallway from Ethan's room, bright red cardigan under a volunteer vest, lanyard swinging. Back mostly to camera, then she turned her head slightly. Victoria Ashford. I don't believe it, I whispered. But of course I did. The audacity was breathtaking, but exactly her style. She disguised herself, stolen a badge, walked into pediatric surgical, slipped into the room during a brief window, maybe 60 seconds between nurse checks, a few button presses, change one number. Turn life-saving into lethal. Sophia forwarded the video to the detective who'd just arrived, Detective Maria Santos, calm and sharp-eyed. Santos watched, expression hardening. She got on her radio. All units. Suspect is white female, late 50s, shoulder-length blonde hair, volunteer badge, red cardigan, name Victoria Ashford. She is in this building. Wanted for attempted murder and protective order violation, code gray, do not approach. The hospital energy shifted, quiet tension became active hunt, radio chatter, doors opening and closing, coordinated sweeps. We were safe in our locked room. But she was out there, cornered. I felt overwhelming need to do something. I walked to Detective Santos by the door. Is there anything I can do? I know what she looks like. Santos gave me a sharp look. Sir, stay in this room with your family and let us handle this. She was right, but helplessness was suffocating. I stood by the door, looking through the small window, watching officers move down the corridor. Then I saw it flash of red at the far end, a fire exit door slowly closing. Someone just went through. The stairwell. I pointed. Fire exit. Someone just went through. Santos and 2 officers took off running. I didn't think. I reacted. Opened the door. Followed. I heard Sophia yell my name. Kept going. I'm not a hero. I'm a software architect in my 40s with bad knees. But I'm a father. The woman who tried to kill my son was getting away. The stairwell was concrete and echoing footsteps. I was 2 flights behind officers. I heard shouting below. I reached a landing, looked over the railing. Victoria was trapped on the next landing. Officers coming up from below, Santos coming down from above. Cornered, back against wall, still wearing that red cardigan and stolen vest. She saw me looking down. Her face twisted with rage and desperation. You! She shrieked, voice echoing. You ruined everything! You destroyed my life! You did this to yourself, Victoria, I called down, voice surprisingly steady. She lunged toward the stairs, trying to push past the officer coming up. Not really a fight, desperate, clumsy scuffle. The officer, a large man, easily spun her around, pressed her against the wall. Another officer cuffed her, over in seconds. Click of cuffs, echoing like gunshots. Detective Santos read her rights while she sobbed ugly, defeated sounds holding no remorse, only rage at being caught. You have the right to remain silent. I stood on the landing, heart hammering, watching the woman who'd terrorized my family be stripped of power. She looked up at me one last time. Her eyes weren't filled with regret, pure, concentrated hatred. But the look didn't scare me anymore. It was empty. The monster was real, but in the end, just a bitter woman in a stolen vest, brought down by her own poison, code gray lifted. But for Victoria Ashford, the real lockdown was beginning. The days following were a whirlwind of interviews and legal meetings. The evidence wasn't just substantial, it was overwhelming. Hospital security footage showed her entering through a service entrance. They found the real volunteer, sweet elderly Margaret, locked in a supply closet, shaken but unharmed. Victoria had ambushed her, stolen badge and vest. Then, digital evidence. Search warrant on her home and devices. On her phone, text thread with her sister reading like a criminal diary. Years ago. Michael Chen thinks he's too good for me. As if marriage ever stopped anyone. When we moved in, he moved into my neighborhood. He'll regret this. Recent. The kid's surgery is Friday. Perfect timing. Vulnerable. Distracted. Night, she cut power. Phase 1, complete. Let's see how they handle being powerless. Her search history was damning. Researching Ethan's condition, IV pumps used at Aurora Medical, and chillingly, how to change dosage on hospital equipment, and lethal doses of pre-anesthetic in children. She'd also watched YouTube videos, Alaris pump volunteer training, and how to bypass hospital badge systems. Raymond's camera footage became crucial. Police matched the Lexus to Victoria's vehicle. They pulled her car's GPS. She'd been to our house at 2:41 a.m. HOA records provided more. Sophia had documented gate code changes, but police found more. Victoria used admin access to lock us out of the portal, changed our contact info, attempted to place a lien on our property for invented fines. The HOA board panicked, called emergency meeting. Sophia and I attended with half the neighborhood, held in the same clubhouse where Victoria used to lecture about lawn maintenance. The remaining board members, accountant David and retired teacher Patricia, looked terrified. The police informed us, David said, voice quavering, that Miss Ashford acted without board knowledge. She targeted the Chen family specifically, falsified records. Patricia stood. We're horrified. This isn't what our community stands for. We're implementing immediate changes. Residents were furious. People shared stories, arbitrary fines, threats of liens, rule interpretations. We weren't her only targets. Just the one she'd escalated to attempted murder. By meeting's end, unanimous vote. Victoria removed from board, stripped of HOA access, banned from community facilities pending property sale. Days later, call from DA's office. Senior Prosecutor Amanda Walsh, Mr. and Mrs. Chen, given severity and evidence, were pursuing multiple felony counts. She listed them: attempted murder first degree, felony, child endangerment, criminal tampering with medical device, protective order violation, burglary, aggravated stalking, criminal mischief. Attempted murder alone carries 16 to 48 years under Colorado guidelines. We're seeking maximum. Are you prepared to testify? Yes, Sophia and I said simultaneously. The trial was short. Faced with evidence, Victoria's attorney advised accepting the plea bargain. No dramatic trial, no cross-examination, just sentencing. We attended. Ethan didn't want to. I just want to forget her, he said. We respected that. The courtroom was where Judge Hammond had granted our EPO. Victoria looked different. County jumpsuit, no makeup, uncombed hair. All manufactured authority gone, small and defeated. The prosecutor gave devastating summary. Premeditation, calculation, extreme cruelty of targeting vulnerable child to settle personal grudge. Sophia spoke first for victim impact. She laid out facts chronologically, every harassment, every escalation, every moment of fear. Concluded, the defendant weaponized bureaucracy to terrorize us, then weaponized medicine to try to murder our son. She deserves every day of maximum sentence. I kept mine shorter. Looked directly at Victoria. You tried to kill my 15-year-old son because I didn't want an affair with you 12 years ago, because I chose my wife and family. You need psychiatric help, Victoria. But more than that, you need to be somewhere you can never hurt anyone again, Judge Hammond spoke. Miss Ashford, I've presiding over many cases. Violence, greed, stupidity, but calculated cruelty born from wounded pride? Targeting a child, tampering with medical instruments meant to heal? That demonstrates a venomous nature I rarely see. She paused. Pursuant to plea agreement, on attempted murder first degree, I sentence you to 30 years in Colorado Department of Corrections with mandatory minimum of 24 years before parole eligibility. On remaining charges, concurrent sentences. 30 years. Victoria's face crumpled. Furthermore, the judge continued, you will pay full restitution to the Chen family, and I'm issuing a permanent lifetime no contact order. You are never to contact or attempt contact. If you send them so much as a letter from prison, you'll face additional prosecution. Understood? Yes, Your Honor, Victoria whispered. Gavel came down. Court adjourned. Bailiffs led her away. We watched her go, small figure in orange jumpsuit, carefully constructed world, demolished. We sat, hands clasped. It was over. Truly over. But the aftermath wasn't clean like I'd imagined during sleepless nights fantasizing about justice. Reality was messier, heavier, stained with consequences I hadn't anticipated and couldn't have prepared for even if I'd tried. 6 months later, life looked almost normal from outside. Ethan was thriving surgery, successful, healthy, growing, full of teenage attitude and energy. Seeing him complain about homework and argue about video game time limits was the sweetest victory imaginable. The new HOA board was reasonable, competent, boring in the best possible way. Their first major act was Ethan's Law, automatic medical accommodation for any resident with documented need. No approvals needed, no architectural review committees, no bureaucratic hoops, just compassion, common sense, and a recognition that some things matter more than aesthetic uniformity. Victoria's house sold at auction to cover restitution. The full amount, every dollar we donated to Aurora Medical Center's pediatric wing, funding a new patient safety initiative focused on medication verification systems. The hospital named it the Ethan Chen Patient Safety Protocol. They installed additional safeguards on all IV pumps, requiring biometric verification for any dosage changes and real-time physician approval for certain medication classes. From outside, it looked like justice served, wounds healed, life returned to normal. But here's what the courtroom victory and the donations and the safety protocols couldn't fix, couldn't even touch. Ethan won't go near hospitals. Even for routine checkups that should be simple, straightforward, nothing to worry about, the pediatrician has to come to our house for everything: strep throat checks, sports physicals, flu shots. Last month, he needed blood work for a routine panel, and the nurse had to come to our kitchen to draw it, while Ethan sat at our table gripping Sophia's hand and staring at the ceiling. His jaw clenched so tight, I could see the muscles working. He can't tolerate the sound of electronic beeping. Any electronic beeping. Microwave timer, oven timer, car door reminder, phone alarm, anything that makes that particular steady electronic beep sends him into immediate panic. Last week, the smoke detector battery got low and started chirping. Ethan locked himself in his room for 2 hours, headphones on, music blasting, unable to come out even after we changed the battery and proved the sound was gone. His therapist, yes, he has a therapist now, we all do, says it's PTSD, that the sound triggers his brain back to that pre-op room, to those moments when death was being programmed into the machine beside his bed without anyone knowing. She says it might improve with time and treatment. She also says it might not, that some triggers are permanent rewiring. Sophia has nightmares 3 or 4 times a week. She wakes up at exactly 3:47 a.m., the precise minute the power was cut that first morning, and can't go back to sleep. I'll find her at 4 a.m. standing in Ethan's doorway, watching him sleep, making sure he's breathing. Or she'll be in the garage checking the circuit breakers, or walking the perimeter of the house, checking windows and doors. Or sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, reviewing our security camera feeds, even though nothing has happened in months. She's lost 15 pounds she didn't need to lose. She has dark circles under her eyes that makeup can't hide. Her hands shake sometimes when she thinks nobody's watching. She's on anti-anxiety medication now, something she swore she'd never need, something that makes her feel like she failed somehow by not being strong enough to handle this without chemical help. And me? I can't make decisions anymore. Any decisions, even simple ones. What should we have for dinner? I'll stand in the kitchen for 20 minutes, paralyzed by the weight of choosing wrong. Should I take the new job opportunity that came up? I've been putting off the decision for 6 weeks because I can't evaluate risk anymore. Everything feels like it carries catastrophic potential. I chose wrong so many times during Victoria's campaign. I chose not to call police after the power cord because I didn't want to scare Ethan. Wrong choice gave Victoria time to escalate. I chose not to report the gate code tampering immediately because I wanted to build a stronger case first. Wrong choice gave her more confidence. I chose to follow the officers into the stairwell instead of staying with my family. Could have been the wrong choice if she'd had a weapon, if she'd hurt someone else while I was chasing her. I'm haunted by 100 tiny decisions that could have gone differently, could have resulted in my son's death. The fact that we got lucky, that Dr. Patel caught the error, doesn't erase the reality that my choices put us in that position where we needed luck to survive. My therapist doctor, Richardson, patient man in his 60s, who's probably heard every trauma story imaginable, says, "I'm catastrophizing, that I'm taking responsibility for things outside my control, that Victoria's actions were hers alone and I did everything a reasonable person could have done. But I know the truth. He's too professional to say, we got lucky. Raymond happened to have cameras. Doctor Patel happened to hear that beep. The nurse happened to program the pump minutes before Victoria could access it, giving Dr. Patel time to catch the error. Victoria happened to be arrogant enough to come back and gloat in person. Luck saved us. Not my choices, not Sophia's documentation, not the restraining order or the police or the justice system. Just dumb, random luck. And you can't rely on luck. You can't build a sense of safety on the foundation of random chance. So, we live now in this weird limbo where, objectively, we're safe. Victoria is locked up for 24 years minimum. She can't hurt us. The threat is eliminated. But subjectively, we're terrified all the time because we know how easily it could have gone differently. One evening, Sophia and I sat on our back porch watching the sunset paint the Colorado sky in shades of orange and purple that seemed almost artificially beautiful, like a movie backdrop. Ethan was inside yelling at his friends during some online game. Perfectly normal, wonderfully boring. The sound of a 15-year-old having fun. "Do you think we're ever going to feel safe again?" Sophia asked quietly, her voice barely audible over the evening sounds of the neighborhood distant lawnmowers, a dog barking, children playing. I thought about lying. Saying yes. Of course, time heals all wounds. We're fine now. Everything's fine. Instead, I said, I don't know. Maybe we're not supposed to feel completely safe. Maybe that's what we lost, along with everything else. Maybe safety was always an illusion and we just didn't know it before. She squeezed my hand, laced her fingers through mine. That's a really depressing answer. Yeah, I agreed. It is. We sat in silence as snow started falling, early snow for October. Fat flakes drifting down and settling on the porch railing, on the dead grass, on the roof of the house where our son was laughing at something one of his friends said. The neighborhood looked Christmas card perfect, each house lit from within, smoke rising from chimneys, lights twinkling in windows. Inside, Ethan's laughter echoed through the open door. We were alive. We were together. Victoria Ashford was locked away in Colorado Department of Corrections, sleeping on a thin mattress in a 6x8 cell, eating food from plastic trays, living a life so small and constrained, it would have driven her mad if she wasn't already there. But victory, I'd learned in the 6 months since her sentencing, doesn't erase the scars. It doesn't undo the damage. It doesn't give you back the person you were before the trauma rewired your brain. It just gives you the space to learn to live with the person you've become. To accept that you'll never be quite the same, to find a new version of normal that accommodates the fear and the hypervigilance and the 3 a.m. panic checks. Justice doesn't roar like I'd imagined it would. It doesn't thunder in with dramatic music and perfect closure. Sometimes it just clicks quietly into place, like handcuffs in a hospital stairwell, like a gavel coming down in a courtroom, like a cell door locking and staying locked. And it gives you permission to keep breathing, even if that breathing comes with nightmares and therapy appointments and a son who can't handle the sound of a microwave timer without his hands starting to shake. The snow fell heavier, blanketing Pinewood Heights in white, covering the streets where Victoria used to patrol with her clipboard, covering the path to our front door where she used to leave violation notices, covering everything in a layer of clean white that made it all look peaceful and perfect and safe. Sophia leaned her head on my shoulder. "We survived," she said. "Yeah," I agreed. "We survived." And for tonight, in this moment, watching snow fall while our son laughed inside, that was enough. It had to be enough. Because it was all we had. But maybe, just maybe, that was more than we'd had 6 months ago when we walked out of that hospital not knowing if we'd ever feel safe again. Maybe survival wasn't about returning to who we were before that version of us who believed in safety and assumed the world was fundamentally fair. Maybe it was about accepting who we'd become, scarred, hypervigilant, anxious, but still here, still together. Still fighting every day to give our son a life that felt normal even when we knew it never would be again, Doctor. Richardson told me something last week during our session that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. He said trauma doesn't break you, it transforms you. And you get to choose whether that transformation makes you smaller, more afraid, more isolated, more controlled by what happened, or whether it makes you more deliberate about what matters. I'm still figuring out which direction I'm going. But tonight, sitting here with Sophia's head on my shoulder and Ethan's laughter floating through the open door and snow falling soft and clean over Pinewood Heights, I think maybe we're going to be okay. Not the same, never the same, but okay, in a new way, in a harder, more honest way that knows exactly how fragile everything is and chooses to keep going anyway. The wind picked up, sending snow swirling across the porch. Sophia shivered and I pulled her closer. "Come on," I said. "Let's go inside. It's freezing out here." We stood up together, walked through the door into our warm house where our son was alive and safe and laughing at something ridiculous his friend had said. I closed the door behind us, locked it, 2 deadbolts now instead of 1, and checked the alarm system was armed. Some habits we'd never lose, but that was okay too, because we were home, we were together, and tomorrow we'd wake up and do it all again. The therapy appointments and the medication reminders and the careful navigation of triggers and the constant low-level anxiety that had become our new normal. But we'd do it together, and that, I was learning, was its own kind of victory.